What is going on, my friends, and welcome to another Chase on Two Wheels First Ride. Today we are here at Mountain Motorsports in Roswell for an EBR SX 1190. So this is a 2015 model. I've never ridden an EBR. This is one of the few American-made motorcycles. Also, RIP EBR, because by the time I'm doing this video, EBR is shutting on down. So we need to really appreciate this American-made Super Naked. Let's cut to the cinematics and find the weird key that's on the side. Here we go. Alright guys, we got a 2015 EBR 1190 SX. Eric Buell used to make bikes for Harley. Now he makes his own stuff. Oh, you know, I've heard some like good and bad things about this bike. Seat wise, looks like I can easily flat foot it with some bent knees, which is always good. I love that. Traction control. So this bike is odd. Holy crap, there's a lot of stuff in there. Oh, that's pretty cool. Track dry, good grip. That's really cool. Do you guys see that? So it tells you, I don't really like the selection method. All right, so you know what? Street dry grip. We're doing it at 12, and then we'll put it down to 2. So what I've been told is 2 is where this bike shines as far as traction control. You can really enjoy the motorcycle. We're going to start out in 12 because safety. Let's start this thing up. Alright, so you got a V-twin engine here, which I would assume has a low down torque, really torquey little monster. I don't like how much I can't move the steering wheel or the handlebars though. That's not the funnest of times. I gotta say though, it's pretty freaking comfortable. Like for a Super Naked, you know, this is in the same ballpark as a KTM Duke, like a Super Duke, you know, the beast that it is. I like the seat. You know, I looked at the seat and I was like, wow, that thing looks like it's literally made of plastic. But I can happily say it's a lot more comfortable than I thought it was. Or I thought it would be, I guess is what I should say. This bike has a weird feeling, you know, it has a massive amount of horsepower. I think it actually has more horsepower than the Super Duke, but it doesn't feel like that. God, this bike sounds weird. You hear it? I don't know. Okay, we're getting used to it. We're learning the bike. We're learning each other. So this bike also has something really weird in it, and that's that this thing that you're seeing right here, that is actually not the gas tank. The gas tank on this bike is this black area right here, which you would know as like the frame on most other bikes. It's actually so that the weight of the bike can be lowered down, something about all that kind of stuff. I'm not a scientist, so you're gonna have to look into that yourselves. But just know that they put the gas tank in the frame basically for racing reasons. Supposedly these bikes are made for race, like made for racing use. We'll say we're in 3rd gear, going to right at 5 grand RPMs, and the bike is shaking a lot by my feet. Like my feet are just like constantly vibrating. Very odd. It gives me a kind of a KTM feel with that vibration like that. So another thing that's interesting on this bike is it looked like it had like 20 traction control modes, but there's no power mode, which is pretty odd. So it's only got one power mode and all the adjustments go into the traction control. So it's kind of interesting to have only modes in the traction control. Wow, that mirror is terrible. I mean, it gives you something that you can adjust based on how you want to ride, but you know, it's not the power, which is kind of what most people would expect. it kind of goes towards this whole mentality of this bike is kind of track focused, which is odd that it's a super naked, but whatever. But you know, if you're at the track, very rarely are you gonna not want to be in the highest power mode, you know what I mean? But depending on track conditions, you might want different traction control. So supposedly the bike is made for racing, and it proves that with the modes that are available. The brakes on this thing are also really interesting. So typically the brakes of a motorcycle are towards the axle in the middle. I don't know if you'll be able to see. Yeah, you can't really see right here. But these brakes, the rotors, there's only one on the front, and it's this massive thing around the outside. It's really cool. It's really interesting, visually at least. Supposedly it works better, and it makes it so you only have to have one rotor up front. I do want to like tap on the brakes coming up just to see how they react, because I mean, maybe that's a better thing, but it's just like, how can one rotor be better than two? You know what I mean? Not better, but as good. I don't know, something I'm interested in figuring out. Definitely gonna like get a feel for. That's so odd that it's revving up. Hold on, if I put it in neutral, does it? That's interesting. The bike kind of chills out in neutral down at like 1500, and if I put it into first, it revs up with no throttle. It revs up almost 1,000 more. Okay, whatever, power to you. Supposedly, from what I've heard, over 6,000, this bike kind of turns on, if you will. All right. Okay, I'll agree with that. I will accept that as fact. It's an odd power band though. See, super naked, you have this assumption that it's gonna kick on low down, like it's gonna have low end torque, but this bike doesn't. My foot keeps hitting something on the engine. It looks like a little engine plate every time I go for the rear brake. I want to see what that is. Interesting. So my foot keeps hitting this thing. We got some time. Let's put this thing in traction control too. You can't change it? Oh, there we go. Okay, traction control. I accept. Oh, I didn't have time. It took too long. That's the test. That's the test. And it failed. It's still fast as shit though. Alright, hopefully we'll get another red light and I can get the traction control back down to where I want it. I'm not going to put it in 2 because everybody says 2 and everybody's crazy. So I'm going to put it in 3. Alright, we're in traction control 9. Whatever. It's the best I could do. EBR, highway entrance. Can't do any of the mode changes unless we're stopped. So we're stuck here, ladies and gentlemen. 2015 EBR 1190 SX. All right, we're sitting back in the throttle, or in the thing. Woo-hoo! Oh, the vibrations suck, but the power does not. Oh my goodness. All right, 3rd gear going 80. Oh, wow, that's awesome. I love that. It has got some punch. I'm impressed that it has that much punch on the highway, because the bike looks like it caps out at 1150. 11,500, I mean. Woo! It is chilly today, ladies and gentlemen. All right, as an example, we're going 80 in 3rd gear. We want to pass. Oh my good Lord. Oh my God. I don't feel safe going this fast on this bike. Holy shit! Holy shit! Oh my God, this bike pulls like nobody's business. And I'm in traction control 9. Okay, I gotta chill the hell out. 6th gear. Woo! I will say, there's a lot of wind. A lot of wind. Woo! Alright. So we're finally off the highway, and my goodness, for having the traction control so high, I figured the traction control settings slightly affected power or something, but oh my gosh, that was crazy. The bike has a insane level of power that I did not expect, and it puts the power on in such an odd way. Like the way the power band works on this bike is, you know, you're on a super naked. I'm going to be trying to change these settings real quick. You expect the power to come on at a different time than it actually does, and then when it comes on, it surprises you. So the power band is just really odd on this thing. The wind, oh wow, we actually got the traction control changed. That's great. All right, we're in traction control 3 now. We're gonna goose it a little bit, see what's up. My goodness, you let off the gas and you are just diving forward. Geez, I feel like this bike is really, I don't really know the word I'm looking for. Broody, kind of muscly dude. This bike reminds me of like a muscle guy at a gym. It's not really a refined, elegant machine. It just kind of, you know, it just kind of is. And even sounds very, like, listen to it. You know what I mean? It doesn't have that delicate, kind of sexy vibe that a lot of bikes have. And that's in the looks as well. For a bike that's this broody, I feel like it looks like an electric bike. It's got a lot of curves and just big shapes, which is odd for a bike, you know. The power kicks on at 6,000 RPMs so strong. Underneath that, it's just kind of whatever. It's very R6-y, you know. The R6 at 8,000, 7,000, something like that. The RPM's there, and suddenly it's a whole new bike. Suddenly all the power kicks in. And supposedly the power band maxes out at 10 grand. And that's 1,500 RPMs before the bike's, you know, redlining. I don't know if that's really usable. And it's such an odd way of doing a super naked. Jumping back to how the wind was terrible. And I don't know if that's a mixture of a super naked, you know, a naked doesn't have fairing, so the wind is going to be bad, but a super naked with having the engines that these things have, because the Super Duke, the 1290 Super Duke, which is pretty much the closest competitor to this guy, both of them are very bad when it comes to wind. Which kind of sucks, because if you think about it, these could be the ideal, you know, have one bike. You have one bike that's super powerful, it can handle anything, but then it's got to get you to the fun riding, and it and the Super Duke just don't have that. You know, the wind is so bad that I don't know if I could ride that thing on the highway for very long. I mean, I could deal with it if I had to, but like, do you want to have to deal with stuff on a bike, especially if you only have one? I don't know, it's just stuff to think about. Like, American-made cars, they have that brunty kind of feel too, and this bike, no different. Oh my God. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying you need to know that coming into it. Oh my good Lord. 6,000, man. You better be ready, because this bike, it slowly opens the door and it hits 6,000 and a big old dude walks in and just boot stomps the door open. That's what happens with the power on this bike. Oh my gosh. It's even more pronounced on this bike than it is the R6. And the R6 is terrible. That bike, not in bad way, but like that bike turns on. I'll put it this way. The R6 wakes up at 8,000. This bike wakes up with a shot of heroin. That is what happens to this bike at 6,000 RPMs. Under that, it's like, okay, this is crap. So for a bike that doesn't have really good handlebar movement when, you know, basically not moving, turning in to a turn feels much better the faster you go. You know, this bike continuously keeps proving to me that the guy that made it is a track dude, not kind of a city riding guy. And you know, that's the main type of riding I do, is city riding. So God, you get thrown forward so hard. I'm not a fan of that, man. I'm not a fan of how, I guess, hard the suspension is. When all of the weight, when you let go of the throttle and all the weight gets shifted forward, you just like hit. You're like boom, and it's pretty jolting. But you know, if you want to do a track day, like you want to have your suspension dialed in correctly, and the majority of the time on a track, you got your suspension harder so you can get that feedback from the front tire. But on the road, you don't really want a really hard suspension. We're going ahead of you, Mack truck. I will say, this is a hard bike to ride. I mean, a really skilled rider can probably ride this bike really quickly, but it feels like it takes a really skilled rider to really ride it correctly, which again pushes to that like track rider. A really experienced rider normally rides the track. I feel like that's got to be where this bike is made to go. Another thing I didn't really get to touch on when we were on the highway is the seating position. I feel like I'm very close to the handlebars. There's not a lot of room between here and my crotch. And my legs are tucked in, but they're not crunched. I wouldn't say, again, I'm 5'10". I try to remind you guys that for you know, height comparison. And one thing I don't really like is I feel like my height and build are pretty average, like hardcore average. And a lot of the time, if a bike fits me well, it fits a lot of people well. The area on the gas tank, or this tank area, there's like a lip, and typically your legs would fit into the lip so you could hold the bike. I have to get on my tippy toes on the pegs just for my legs to like get into that gap. Otherwise, they're kind of just down here just wiggling around. I really like to be able to grab the tank. I don't know if you guys can see. I like grabbing this with my legs, and I can't really do that because my legs are just moving all around. So, it's not ideal, but you know, that's just kind of the fitment of the bike. With that area being so thin between my crotch and the handlebars, I end up sitting upright. You know, to go down, I have to bend over and hunch, and who the hell is gonna ride like that? I mean, I guess I could scoot way back, but then my legs can barely touch up here. You know, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like there's a lot of options for riding. I recently did a long-term review on a Triumph Street Triple. And that's that bike's a really good example of, you can ride that bike in a lot of different ways and it feels good in all of the ways. I feel like my legs need to be taller, and I need to, like, I just don't know how to ride this thing, I guess. It does lean over really quickly, you know. The bike felt relatively light moving it around on the showroom, and low speed, you know, dipping in. I guess that could be helped by the gas tank being, I guess, the frame. So with the weight not being up high, it's easily maneuverable. God, it's like freaky maneuverable. But it doesn't have that going at speed, which is odd. So a lot of weird things going on with this bike. I think it's just an odd bike to ride. And nobody will deny that it is grunty at all. So we're gonna pull into the old parking lot and take a gander at the bike, check it out, see what it looks like, and I'll let you know my opinions. Let's just say that I hope none of you guys are big fans of EBR, because I'm a bit opinionated on the subject. God, you gotta be careful with this thing, man. It just goes over real quick. Would be great to have at an MSF course. Alright, let's look at this bad boy. God, it's so weird, the keys. Alright guys, 2015 EBR 1190SX. Do you see what I mean about it looks like an electric bike? You know, if they had covered the frame a little, or the engine a little bit, it's got those big shapes that kind of go with electric bikes. That's the front. To be honest, I really don't like the way it looks. Personal opinion, doesn't matter. But that's just how I feel. I just feel like the bike's all over the place. I don't feel like it has really solid design characteristics. I do appreciate the fact that the top fairing kind of feeds into the headlight and you get the black and the red separation. I appreciate that. This is the front brake that I was talking about. So typically these guys are around the middle, and supposedly by putting it on the outside and having this giant caliper, you only need one. You don't need dual rotors. Which is it's interesting. I don't like the way it looks. I think it looks really old. I like the way the newer ones look, but I mean, again, personal preference. You got these like jet turbine looking fans up here that, I mean, it's just an interesting situation, you know. I do appreciate the exhaust has this kind of like powder black coated material. You get these like heavy duty looking pegs. But I mean, to each their own. I also feel like the seat looks like a freaking, I don't know, fairing. Like if I didn't touch it, that looks like a fairing, right? Like just, I don't know. I feel like the bike has a lack of movement, maybe? I don't know. I'm not a designer, dude. I don't know terminology, but I'm just not a fan. I really don't like that is as silver as it is with, I mean, like, if you want to do, like, gunmetal like that, if they'd have put this everywhere that silver is, would have been way better. The wheels are very minimal. But, see, I don't like the way that, like, I feel like I'm seeing a part of the wheel I shouldn't see. You know what I mean? And it's probably, like, to shave weight because, like, this bike continues to prove that it's for somebody that really knows what they're doing and is like hardcore rider. And you know, hardcore rider, they don't give a shit what a bike looks like. They give a shit of like how it performs. So, I mean, yeah, that is what it is. Which is terrible for me because in my reviews and me as a person, I'm a very aesthetic person. I like the way things look and I want my things to look nice. This takes all of that, throws it in the garbage and says, yeah, but like it runs well. You got show front fork, so that's awesome. So guys, I'm going to stop shitting on this bike for now. I do want to let you guys listen to the exhaust, and I also want to remind you, every first ride that I do a little write-up, and I do some really awesome photos that you guys can download, awesome resolution, and a high-res sound clip, so you can actually hear what the bike sounds like. The GoPro audio can only do so much. So if you want to check all that out, Chaseontwowheels.com, link in the description. Go check it out. But for now, let's listen to what it listens like, because that makes sense. Also, it is real cruisery to have the key on the side of the bike. I don't like it at all. I really don't like it. Personal opinions again. Then again, you are on a Chase on Two Wheels channel, so I get to have personal opinions. Alright, 2015 EBR 1190SX. I will say, it revs up really quick. You don't have to turn the throttle very much for it to rev quickly. Oh, look at that. Oh, you get the reds. I don't know what that means. It probably means don't rev me this much when we're not moving. Alright, that's the EBR. Let's finish this ride up. Alright, guys. Oh, Jesus Christ. Alright, guys, let's finish up this thing. Alright, final thoughts. This bike, the EBR 1190SX, is made for somebody that knows very much what they're doing and does not care about aesthetics. The power of the engine kicks on in a very weird way. At 6,000 RPMs, suddenly the bike has a massive set of balls. Low speeds, the bike leans in a lot, and even at medium speed, like, the bike leans very easily. I think that's contributed to the body positioning and the tank being actually part of the frame, which is really weird. I feel like the bike's relatively comfortable for what I feel a very sport-focused motorcycle. I personally feel like the bike looks like crap, but you know what? Personal opinions are like buttholes. We all got one. Power-wise, I feel like the bike has a massive amount of power. Over 6,000 RPMs. It's got a very odd set of traction control modes. but no power mode. So there's that. At least coming stock, the suspension seems a little hard. I'm not a huge fan of that. Engine braking really happens higher up in the rev ranges, so when you're down low you don't really get much of anything, but then when you're up really high, the engine braking is really like, it throws you forward. In a racing situation it would be great. As a daily rider, it's not really that awesome. So who do I think the EBR 1190SX is for? It's not the daily rider. It's not your one bike that you have and you go ride with. I would go as far to say as I don't think this is your second bike. I think that this is a specialty bike that you have in a garage full of bikes that you want to ride this when you pick that bike to go ride. It's not a daily rider because it doesn't have that sophistication that a bike needs to be a daily rider, or a really good one, at least if you're paying this much money. And it's a super naked, so it's not ideal for the track because that would be a super sport. You know, that'd be an R6 or an R1 or a CBR 1000 or what, you know, whatever you want. So this bike is just a real specialty bike for the special person. I would go as far to say as I imagine that's probably why this company doesn't exist anymore, or isn't going to exist for very long anymore, because these bikes are very specialized and I don't think they have a very clear job. So that's my opinions, at least. And that's all I got to say about the 2015 EBR 1190SX. A very odd bike and an odd review. And guys, before I call this video over, I got to do a massive shout out to my guys over at Mountain Motorsports. They are the dealer up here in North Georgia that allows me to basically ride any bike I want, so that I can let you guys know what I feel about them and give you my first impressions, so that when you're out there looking for a bike that you want, you know, you can know what it's like riding the bike for the first time, because a lot of people aren't able to ride bikes and go test ride them. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, make sure to share this video out to somebody that is looking for an EBR and let them know how specialized this bike is. I appreciate you guys watching to this point in the video. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video or it helped you out at all. I'm Chaseontwowheels, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Later.